Will the Ethereum ETF actually get approved this week? What do we know so far from institutions and the SEC? And if it does get approved, what will actually happen to the price of Ethereum and its related assets? In today's video, I will look at all the facts to answer these questions. Make sure to watch till the end as I will give my personal prediction on Ethereum for the second half of the year based on the price performance of Bitcoin after its ETF approval. Welcome back to the Virtualbacon channel. My name is Dennis. I'm a crypto angel investor for the past 5 years, and I have invested in over 100 crypto companies. On this channel, I share views on market trends and investing strategy to build wealth in crypto. Now, why is the Ethereum ETF so important, and if not more important than the Bitcoin ETF? There are two sides to this question. Number one is with the status of Ethereum. You guys already know Bitcoin is confirmed to be treated as a commodity instead of a security by the regulators, and this has been cemented after the approval of the Bitcoin Spot ETF. This ETF would have never come true if Bitcoin was going to be treated as a security instead of a commodity. So after the ETF launch, this has been completely settled, and from now on until the foreseeable future, all of the US markets and US traders can actively access Bitcoin without worrying about security regulations. Now, when it comes to Ethereum, the SEC and its chairman Gary Gensler has continued to dodge the question around whether Ethereum is a commodity or security or something else. There have been many different lawsuits mentioning Ethereum, but every time that the lawsuit would quote Ethereum as a commodity alongside Bitcoin, the SEC just never commented on it. A recent post also revealed that the SEC and Gensler at least believed Ether as a security for over a year. And just 2 months ago in March, SEC went after Consensus, the parent company of MetaMask, alongside many other wallet providers, simply for providing staking services for Ethereum that they are somehow dealing with an unregistered security. Again, this is a question around the legal status of Ethereum as a commodity or security. So if we can actually get the Ethereum ETF approved, this question becomes no longer debatable. Right after the Bitcoin ETF got approved, we saw huge amounts of money flow into the Bitcoin markets from the US traditional funds because these guys didn't have the avenue to access Bitcoin related products before in a regulated way. This is why in the past 5 months, we have seen $12 billion inflow into the Bitcoin markets directly buying up Bitcoin as a result of these ETF being available. So if the Ethereum ETF actually gets approved in the US, this could have a very similar effect. Again, this is only important because these types of products were never offered in the US. Now, since we know all this, why is this ETF hype around Ethereum suddenly happening this week? This is because the latest Ethereum ETF approval deadlines is just coming up on May 23rd and May 24th. As you can see on this table here, we have the VanEck Ethereum ETF, the ARK21 shares Ethereum ETF, and the one from Hashdex, all about to expire to their final deadline this week. So very similar to how the Bitcoin ETF approval went down, because the SEC doesn't want to be a kingmaker, essentially they want to approve all of the ETFs at once if they are going to do so at all. This ensures that all the ETFs can launch at the same time, which means no single ETF will have much bigger TVL and much bigger volume versus everyone else. So in order for them to do this, they have to find a sweet spot, a window of opportunity, which usually sits before the final deadline of any of the issuers and around the same deadline as the other issuers. Which means if they are going to approve any Ethereum ETF at all, it probably needs to be the end of this month. If they don't approve VanEck and ARK21 shares and Hashdex ETFs, this means that they will essentially have to deny these 3 players. But if they then approve anyone else, such as Fidelity or iShares or Franklin Templeton, this creates an unfair situation for them. This is the first reason why everyone is watching this week for the ETF deadlines. The second reason is that the SEC has finally become positive in their conversation with these ETF issuers. Now, in the past few months, many leaks have suggested that the SEC was very negative on these filings and they weren't going to go through with them this year. Combining this with Gary Gensler's continued push around Ethereum as a security, this has led to people not believing that the Ethereum ETF will happen this year. However, just this week on Monday, May 22nd, the US SEC suddenly changed their mind and started to ask all of these ETF issuers around the Ethereum ETF and the exchanges that will list them, namely NASDAQ, CBOE, and NYSE, to fine-tune their applications in order to list spot Ether traded funds, ETFs, signaling that the agency may be poised to approve these filings. Essentially, the SEC suddenly started engaging with these issuers very actively, asking them to change part of their application, which usually is a very good sign. This is what we saw during the run-up to the Bitcoin ETF approval from the end of 2023 until January 2024. You see here, BlackRock has gone back and forth 3 to 4 times with the SEC, making different types of amendments and submitting documents, which finally led to their ETF approval. This is why everyone is flooding to Twitter now and quoting all of these new amendments that have been made from the Ethereum ETF issuers to the SEC. According to the expert analyst from Bloomberg, James Seyfarth, there are at least 5 potential Ethereum ETF issuers that have submitted amended 19B-4s, which is the main application for these ETFs. So Fidelity, VanEck, Invesco, ARK21Shares, and Franklin Templeton all submitted these. As a result of this sudden development, the Bloomberg analysts have dramatically increased their estimated approval rate for this Ethereum ETF by the end of this month. So in the first half of the year, while there wasn't any conversations, they only put the approval rate to be 25%. But now with this new development this week, they are increasing their odds to say that there's at least 75% chance that the Ethereum ETF will be approved this month. I know this is very sudden, but sometimes these kind of things just happen. And we also saw something very interesting happen this morning, where the VanEck spot Ethereum ETF ticker, ETHV, has been listed on the DTCC. The DTCC stands for Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, which clears NASDAQ trades and all other exchange-traded funds. So this is where all the tickers will be displayed. And back in October last year, BlackRock was the first to have their ticker being displayed on this clearing website. This is all part of the process, which shows clearly something is happening here. Now, I had always been very positive on the Ethereum ETF being approved in the middle of this year. You can check my video 4 months ago on what I said about the Ethereum ETF. Long story short, I have been betting heavily on Ethereum and its ecosystem for the past 4 months, even though the Ethereum price has been relatively quiet and suppressed versus the rest of the market. A few reasons support my thesis even before this news was released. Number one is that the Wall Street giant BlackRock have already filed their Ethereum spot ETF. Now, BlackRock has a 99.8% approval rate for filing new ETFs. They have had 577 approvals and only 1 rejection. This means basically we know that the Ethereum ETF will happen. It's only a matter of when, not if. Secondly, when you want to see if the Ethereum ETF will happen or not, just follow the money and see what people are doing. In this case, we can see it from the Grayscale Ethereum Trust discount ratio. So what this chart tells us is the price of the Grayscale Ethereum Trust, how it's trading versus the real price of Ethereum. Remember the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which continued to decrease in its discount ratio versus the real price of Bitcoin, then eventually led to the approval of the Bitcoin ETFs, and then subsequently the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust was converted to a real ETF which had redemptions. This chart is very telling. Essentially what it's saying is that throughout 2022 and 2023, people were not confident that they were going to get their real Bitcoin's worth by betting on the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust because it's a closed format. It wasn't an ETF before. This is why the price of this trust was trading much lower than Bitcoin's. However, as the Bitcoin ETF news got more and more popular and as the developments were clearly there, people got their hopes up and started buying up this trust in anticipation for its conversion to the ETF. Basically, they can take advantage of that arbitrage difference. So this same scenario is now happening on the Grayscale Ethereum Trust. As you can see here, this used to trade at as high as 50% discount to the real price of Ethereum. But throughout 2023, this has been steadily increasing. And you see a little bit of a dip here during the summer when there wasn't much conversation between the SEC and these issuers. So people got their hopes beat down a bit. But suddenly this week, this discount is again ticking way back up, only at 6.6% now, which means people are buying up this Grayscale Ethereum Trust clearly. The money is flowing into this because people are clearly expecting this ETF to be approved. Another market data that you can look at is the Polymarket prediction for the Ethereum ETF approval by May 31st. You see here, this has not had a very good run up since the beginning of the year. People just weren't very confident in this ETF actually being approved, and people were betting on 10 to 20% chance. But suddenly this week, this chance has been bid up all the way to 70% because people perceive this news as very positive. They are willing to put their money on it. In fact, there is $10 million being bet on this market right now. Pretty significant. Now, one last change coming to these Ethereum ETF filings is that they will be removing the ability to stake these Ether from these ETFs. For example, Fidelity has reportedly amended their Ether ETF S1 filing, removing the ETH staking component. Same thing has been done with VanEck, with 21 shares, with Grayscale, etc. So this is leading to a very interesting situation around Ethereum staking. Basically, the SEC is potentially saying that if you are going to stake Ethereum, you can do it by yourself. But if you offer a staking solution, especially in the US, that is potentially treated as a security. So if you are a custodian like Coinbase, or if you're an exchange that want to operate in the US, you cannot offer Ethereum staking services. And as part of this conversation with the SEC, these Ethereum ETF applicants have to ditch this short-term staking potential in order to get these ETFs approved. So overall, this news is very positive for the price of Ethereum because of this ETF approval. However, when it comes to DeFi and Ethereum related staking activities, restaking, staking rehypothecation, stable coins, etc. that rely on staking, a lot of these things are potentially up in the air right now. If you are looking at staking innovation like EigenLayer, Lido, or a lot of the restaking products that's coming up, these could potentially be kind of risky, and maybe they could even discorrelate from the Ethereum price movements due to this development. Last thing to note here before we get into the price, according to Bloomberg analyst, even though the odds have increased to 75% chance for the approval this week, this is only for the 19B-4 filing. So in order for these ETFs to actually launch trading, there are two parts of the filing, the 19B-4 and the S1 approval. So the 19B-4 is basically the SEC saying, yes, these ETFs will be approved, while the S1 approvals are actually the listing approvals that conclude, and then these products can actually start trading on the exchanges. Now, during the Bitcoin ETF approval, we saw these two approvals happen very simultaneously because there were many months of back and forth amendments. So all of these documents were ready. That's why in January of this year, all the firms that applied for the Bitcoin ETFs, they had their approvals for 19B-4s late Wednesday, which was the big announcement. And then by Thursday, a lot of the assets were already started to trade. However, because of how sudden this Ethereum ETF approval is, even if we do get the green light on the 19B-4s, we might not see these ETFs start trading until a few weeks, maybe a couple months away, according to Bloomberg analysts. This means we could potentially see a much more limbo period for volatile speculation before the institutional money actually start to come in. Okay, now let's get into my Ethereum price prediction for the second half of this year. Long story short, I expect a lot of volatility in the next couple weeks, and I wouldn't bet on Ethereum long position immediately, especially now that this news is already well known. In fact, I could see Ethereum even coming back down to retest something like this $3,000 range for another entry period. You can see this very easily around the time when the Bitcoin ETF was approved. The Bitcoin ETF came on January 10th of this year, and the week after that, we actually saw Bitcoin drop from $47,000 back down to $40,000 before its next major run up all the way to 70K. This is because a lot of people flood into the market thinking that right after the ETF gets approved, there's going to be like $10 billion of buying demand all in one day. That's just simply not how things happen. It usually, is still a little bit of a sell the news event while the ETFs actually get listed and these institutions actually get their money ready. Even if they want to buy it, they will take a few months in order to accumulate their positions. And that's why we saw these $12 billion slowly flow in day after day in the last 5 months. So this is why I'm not rushing into the market to buy Ethereum right now. I'm fully expecting a lot more chop, at least for a next 1 to 2 weeks period, potentially longer if the S1 approval and the Ethereum ETF trading doesn't start right away, like on the Bitcoin's case. So I'm just holding my spot Ethereum position and waiting to see if I can get an entry at a lower price point, potentially around that $3,000 level. In the long term, however, I truly believe we will see a full reversal of Ethereum's price versus Bitcoin's and the rest of the market. As people have been noting, since the second half of 2022, Ethereum has been underperforming Bitcoin and dropping against Bitcoin's price. And we have been following this chart, and it seems like it is almost breaking below support. So once the Ethereum ETF actually gets approved, we really need to see this ETH versus Bitcoin ratio get above this resistance range around this 0.055 level. If this happens, we could see a mean reversal where Ethereum actually catches up to Bitcoin. All of this price suppression in the last 2 years could potentially lead to a major run in the price of Ethereum finally in the second half of this year. And if this happens, I expect Ethereum to at least outperform Bitcoin by 30% and if not 50% until the end of this bull run. Basically, that means the ETH BTC chart, I expect it to bounce at least around 30% in the second half of this year. So what does this mean when it comes to Ethereum price prediction then? I expect Ethereum to at least reach $6,000 by the end of this year. This is around a 60% gain from current price. I get to this number by taking a relatively conservative estimate for the price of Bitcoin to reach $100,000 by the end of this year. That is a 44% gain. So taking a 1.3 to 1.5x return on that, that gives us around a 60% gain on the price of Ethereum going to $6,000. As usual, predictions are simply predictions. They're random numbers. What I'm looking at here is just trying to take a relatively conservative approach and especially looking at how suppressed Ethereum's price has been relatively to Bitcoin's. And that is why I'm relatively confident in saying that I expect Ethereum to do really well in the second half of this year. But all of this is hinged on the fact that the Ethereum ETF actually gets approved. If some black swan event actually happens this week, then all bets are off and we will have to reevaluate. Okay, that's everything I wanted to cover for today. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with the Ethereum ETF analysis or not. Before I go, make sure to follow me on Twitter or X at Virtualbacon0x. This is where I drop day-to-day alpha as I'm scrolling the timeline, and I will make sure to cover all the breaking news in this next coming week around the Ethereum ETF approvals. And join our Discord with the link in my bio or go to discord.gg/virtualbacon. We have our free VIP program where I drop my own day-to-day alpha with new altcoin launches, airdrops, and even my personal trade alerts, trade setups. You can follow all my trades and analysis directly in here. And it's not only myself, but we have our community analysts, which are posting regular updates on the market, as well as a full community of crypto traders and investors with over 3,000 members in the VIP community. So if you're looking for a group to share knowledge with, this is the place to be. Okay, that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on the next one.